Mute. The level of professionalism you've come to expect from Ninja News Japan and all of the family of podcasts I produce. I start on mute, so I don't know if I'm actually playing the music. I got a new microphone. If you're watching on the video feed, you can see it's a different shape poking into my face. And I've gone full on and bought one of those arms. I don't know how this is going to work out. I think this one needs a bit of a pop filter. I don't know. Maybe I'm far enough away. I don't know. It's just become very clear I don't really know what I'm doing. So let's just all just accept it. Hopefully I'll learn something. And I don't know. So I'm so torn. The Olympics are happening. We're on day 4 now, I think. And once it's finished, there's going to be like a lot of breakdown of what happened. I guess just get into it. I'm just trying to decide if I should do the single crime story last or first. I'll do it first. And then if you get bored of Olympic news, this is also a mistake. I should load all the good stuff on the end so that people have to listen all the way to the end. I know that's a real strategy that media outlets do and stuff. At the same time, I don't want you to listen to stuff if you don't want to listen to stuff. And I'm tired of the Olympics. It's just now there is no other news. So we're talking Ninja News Japan. It has to be news. It has to be about Japan. The only news in Japan is the Olympics. So I'll do the crime story first. I'm going to do something else first because I'm going to cut all this out of the actual podcast. I want to show you something awful. So I'll do this because this will be on screen. So it gets cut out of the audio podcast. So you can see here, this was one of the stories that came up my feed. And it was just, this isn't how you say stuff. It just was mean. So judo, they're winning a lot of gold medals in judo. Of course they are. Judo was invented in Japan. They're always very strong in judo. And it's always a big point of pride to take away a bunch of medals. The title, Judoka Funa Tonaki, one bout from earning Japan's first Tokyo gold. Is there a shittier way to say congratulations on the silver? Because then, of course, here's the other interesting part. Then you go to the article. Judoka Funa Tonaki takes silver, Japan's first medal of the Tokyo Games. Much more positive way. So clearly, that was, if you click the link here, if you click that link, it takes you to this story. So someone read this, one bout from earning Japan's first gold, and went like, why are you being such an asshole? Write it in a positive way. Japan's first medal of the Tokyo Games. That's all I had to say about that. It's just, this is the problem. This is where I'm saying, like, people don't get what the Olympics are supposed to be. They focus on the gold medals, not on actual achievements of the people there. Philippines got their first gold medal. That to me is the most exciting news so far. The Philippines got the first Olympic gold in their history. That is worth celebrating. It was a girl, and she did weightlifting. She lifted her something really heavy and put it down. I couldn't lift it up. I mean, awesome. It was really cool. That there's no way you could spin that negative. But then they take this article. They got this article, and they're like, she didn't win the gold medal. She almost won the gold medal. Let's talk exclusively about gold medals. I never checked who wrote this. Jason Goskray is a staff writer for the Japan Times. I'm assuming he wrote the original title, and then someone came over and slapped Jason in the back of the head. It was like, why are you being an asshole? First of all, silver medal in the Olympics for judo. She can kick the living shit out of you. So maybe let's tone it back, because if she shows up in his office and starts like shoulder throwing everyone into the ground, that's not going to be cool for us. And then when she gets a hold of you and starts demonstrating a variety of arm locks, she has really nicely done eyebrows. I don't think about judo people's, I don't think about take a look at me. I still consider myself a judo guy. I do not take care of my outward appearance to a significant degree. I moisturize and I try not to get sunburns. I try not to get sunburns because they hurt, not because it's, good for me. Her eyebrows are really nice. And she's got a little little patch there from where she got smacked in the head, probably by this lady over here. Kosovo, that's great. Yeah, this is why one of the things I hate about the Olympics is the weird negativity that goes with not winning gold medals. I mean, getting to the Olympics is a significant achievement. Getting a medal is a massive achievement. And then they got to be like, almost got gold. I mean, live with that shit for the rest of your life. In a way, it's lucky I was never successful. I never had to deal with any of that. Okay. We're going to do one crime story and then it's all Olympic news. If you get tired of it, you won't though, because it's just like the light humor that I add into. My eyebrows are pretty good. Not bad. Maybe people in judo have good eyebrows. Okay, so the first story. There was a man in Aichi. And this is only interesting because it's the first arrest of its kind. There was a law enacted about drones last year, I believe it was. This guy, he's has some cocktails. They said between 7 and 12 a.m. he had 8 beers. That's a lot of beers. I'm just thinking P-wise. If you drink beer regularly, and if you're drinking from 7 o'clock in the morning, you probably drink a lot of beer. So 7 isn't that many over the course of 3-4 hours. It's weird to start drinking that early in the morning, I think. I am an evening drinker. I don't want to judge because I've drunk continuously into the morning. I once watched all 6 movies in a series about witches. I forget the actual title now. And they got progressive. The first one was a serious horror movie, and then each one got progressively worse. And then around the third one, it was about, because it was them doing spells on men, so they would like fall in love with them, but then they would kill them and stuff. But then it just got into like soft porn because the protagonist was like, oh, this is not celebrated actor being our protagonist. It is Penthouse Playmate of the Month, like June 78 or something. It was a tough day, but I'm dedicated to my bits. So I did the full 12 hours of Witch series, The Witch. I'm not actually sure what it's called. I know it just had something to do with witch. So this guy, by 12 o'clock, it sounds like he probably hasn't eaten. So he's drunk. He goes out, he finds a drone while he's cleaning his room. Drunk cleaning, which is an interesting way to do it. I should actually try that, do some drunk cleaning. But one of the things when you're drunk, you're easily distracted. If you've listened to any of the drunk streams or podcasts that I've done, you can see how, like, I go off on tangents now. I let myself go off on tangents because I know I can edit them out. But if you have listened to the proper drunk ones, there was one where I played GTA. It's bad. You get distracted easily. So he, while cleaning, found a drone, one of the little ones. But does this still charge? So then he charges it up. It does. So then he took it out and started playing with it. So he was drunk droning. He hit the window of his neighbor's house, who then called the police. It's an interesting decision. Like, if I heard just something thump against the window, I would think it was a bird. I wouldn't call the cops unless she saw a drone and then thought like, oh, I'm being invaded by aliens or something. Because there's a lot of people who've never seen a drone before in life. I got one for my son for one of his birthdays, and he was too young to actually pilot it. I shouldn't have let him do it because he just immediately went up, and then he went up so high it lost the signal to the controller, so we couldn't make it come down. We had to wait. We got it back though. That's the actually interesting part. When it disconnected, it started coming down slowly, so it didn't crash. But then a lady picked it up, and I had taken the controller away. I was using the drone sound to try to find it. So I would go voo, voo, and then you could kind of hear where it was, and that we used that it was like echolocation almost, very much like a bat. One of my favorite powers. He was arrested for hitting his neighbor's house. Well, he was arrested for drunk droning. So you're not allowed to fly your drones drunk. the punishment hasn't been reported yet. So I'm actually trying to hunt down stories where they say what the punishment is. I'm assuming fine. I don't think he's going to go to jail for this. Japan is still a bit backwards, maybe, in its views on doing things drunk. I don't know. How badly should you get punished for drunk droning? So, like, if I was in there, it wouldn't be. I'd give him a fine, and not even a big one. It'd be like, dude, come on, don't drone drunk. Stop droning on. Now I feel like I've insulted myself somehow. Don't drone drunk. From this point on, I'm pretty sure it's just Olympic news. I was almost, no, you couldn't find anything else. Like, I was hunting for other news and I couldn't find it. So there was all the people who got kicked out. There was Mori got kicked out for sexist comments. There was the composer who got kicked out because he was doing awful things he was bullying his disabled classmates when he was young. We've done those stories. The Japanese media didn't get into the specifics of what that guy did, the music composer dude. Then some of the Western media did, and I read about it. It was pretty awful because he was making them eat poop and taking off their pants. And one of the weirdest ones was he put a box on a kid's head and like got chalk dust and put it in there to like just make him breathe chalk dust. Having no shame for that because he did it when he was a kid. He got famous and then he got interviewed in the 90s. He never really apologized for it. That I feel like should have come up sooner. Some more problems have come up though. Let me find it. The opening ceremony director. So he was in charge of directing the opening and closing ceremonies. He's a comedian. 1998, he actually made jokes on a kids show about the Holocaust. Now, he had, unlike the other guy, actually already apologized. He said, I know this is wrong. I should not have done it. These jokes were inappropriate. And his career continued on. But we get to this where it's international. Some people were saying because they dug up stuff from the 90s on the other guy, that's what they just started doing to try to create more controversies. Not like they needed more. So this one is a little weirder because he's already said sorry and that I realize it's wrong. I don't know if that's true. But Japanese comedies, I've talked about this in the past, it's pretty ancient in its sensibilities. I did I remember I talked about for a really long time about like the fat shaming and like physical jokes. And like, I get students in regularly making jokes about me losing my hair. Like, that is just acceptable humor in Japan. So in the 90s, a joke about the Holocaust, I don't see that as being a big surprise. Maybe he has come along, but this is getting back to something I've said several times now. There's a lot of these old guys with their stuck mentalities. They need to just be gotten rid of. They can't be in charge of anything anymore. I don't see why you have this guy in his 50s in charge when there's probably some more person who's more aware of modern sensibilities in other countries that you could have in charge. Like, why not choose them? But, he's old and experienced and therefore he gets it. Since we're talking about the opening ceremony, that sort of fits in. Toyota is one of the biggest companies in Japan. They built a city. So if you come to Japan, there's Toyota City. That isn't like an ancient city where the company Toyota took its name from. It's actually the opposite. There's Toyota, the company, had so many employees. They're like, we should build a single place where we can house all our employees. They'll buy from company-run restaurants and company-run, like everything in Toyota is kind of owned by Toyota. It's a very old thing, but the people who live there are actually really happy because they do take care of them. So that's kind of cool. Anyways, that's irrelevant. Toyota pulled out of the opening ceremony. They still gave all the money they were going to give to sponsor the Olympics, but they pulled out of the opening ceremony. Other companies have started following suit because they don't want to be connected. They don't want, like, in the background, their logo showing up in a thing that might end up being a massive failure. So there's NTT, Fujitsu, NEC, all pulled out. So they don't have any of their logos in the opening ceremony that happened the other day. I watched about 30 seconds of it. It seemed to have uncoordinated tap dancing to know music that you could hear. I know they were playing music in the stadium. One of the problems with playing music at the stadium is when you hear it isn't the same as when it's actually being maybe fed through speakers and stuff. It just seemed uncoordinated. So I was done with that real quick. I did not want to watch the opening ceremony. I knew it was going to be poor, but didn't think it was going to be that poor. So yeah, the companies have pulled out. They didn't say they pulled out of the opening ceremony. It didn't say they like pulled their funds, but again, one of the stories I did previously is because of the television deals that this Olympics has already been profitable. And they're not making massive amounts of money. And like hotels and stuff, hotels had like 1 million cancellations and things like that. One of the saddest stories, sad for him, not for me. There was a guy, he's an Olympics super fan. As soon as you say super fan, you're like, that's a bit iffy. He spent over $40,000 American, so that's like 4 million yen maybe, on Olympic tickets. And his goal was to set the world record for attending events you need a ticket for. Very specific, because there's lots of events that are actually free. Like, so the marathons run through the streets. So you can just stand on the streets and watch those. Those don't count. It's the stuff you have to buy tickets for. He bought 197 tickets. And he also wants to get the goal for like the number of tickets bought in a lifetime. Highest number of tickets. Yeah, he wants the highest. It's really specific because it's like a world record thing. Small variations actually make a difference as to whether or not it counts. It's the highest number of tickets in a lifetime to see events where you need a ticket. That actually maybe even made it more confusing. He's attended every summer and winter Olympics over the last 15 years. So he's flown to all the other countries. He's gone to all the Olympics so far. The $40,000 he spent, now I assume it was refunded, but because they put a ban on spectators, he spent $40,000 on 197 tickets. And then they were like, no, you can't come to any of those events. Executives and stuff could. One of the things, the Toyota executives were supposed to attend the opening ceremonies. They didn't show up, again, because they're maybe worried about this being a massive failure. So far now that it's going, it's not as bad as I actually thought it was going to be. Like, I was doing the news and the amount of pessimism I had going into this, and also being, again, relatively against the whole concept in the first place. I thought it was going to be worse than it actually was. So I said I bought a new microphone, and it cost 7,000 yen. And I was like feeling really bad about that. And then I saw about this guy spent 40,000 yen on 197 Olympic tickets. I don't feel so bad about buying my new microphone anymore. You can let me know how it sounds. The boom arm I'm getting comes tomorrow, and they said I could actually use this with the PlayStation. So maybe I'll have higher quality sound in my streams when I play online. Another problem with the Olympics, I mean, I'm not even talking about Corona. Basically daily you get a certain amount of cases. It's pretty small, but again, my notes are so disorganized because I put them together and it's just Olympics. Usually I can categorize it so that I can find stuff, but I actually can't. 15% of the people on site in the Olympic village, which is supposed to be, they're calling the Olympic bubble because they're not supposed to go in and out. People are unvaccinated. So those people get sick, they're going to go around spreading it. There's a U.S. swimmer who said it's a personal choice. And he didn't want to get the vaccine before he came because he was worried about it negatively impacting his performance, which I understand the performance part. The saying it's a choice part actually makes it sound like they're just anti-vax. There are 2 archers. I forget how many sports are in the Olympics. There are 2 archers, a man and a woman. I'm not 100% sure. They seem like they're very close. I don't know if they're actually a married couple or not. And they were anti-vaxxers. And the thing is, they both got coronavirus. So they got coronavirus, and then the reason they're immune now is because they got the virus and survived. But it's weird that they can't sort of understand basically a vaccine. I'm not going to get into the details because I don't know them that well myself, but the details of a vaccine are that, you get a little bit of the dead virus and they put it in your body and your body produces the antibodies. You do that without actually having to catch the virus. That's good. These guys, they're like, we got the real virus. We don't think people should get vaccinated. But that means anyone who actually gets sick, there is that possibility of dying. Whereas the vaccine, yes, there is the possibility of long-term negative effects, but the alternative quite often is death. I don't know. The logic there, I struggle with. But again, I'm pro-vaccine. I'm getting mine next week, my first dose. So that'll be interesting. So I can actually report on how well that goes. The gymnastics team, the American gymnastics team, left the Olympic Village. They actually got a hotel so they could create their own bubble because they weren't comfortable with how loose the protocols were. So they talked about all the protocols and all the safety. And then last week, the president of the IOC or stuff, he was talking about like there's zero chance, which again, never say 100%. Because it's like the day he said it, I think I actually did this story last week. The day he said it, there were like cases in the Olympic Village. So that's just a dumb thing to say. The musician who was in charge of the music for the Olympics, who got fired for being a bully when he was a kid to disabled kids, his disabled classmates, actually this week lost, I don't know about all, but a bunch of his contracts. So he was actually doing the kids shows. He had 2 kids shows he did the music for on NHK, which is like the national Japanese broadcaster. It's public broadcasting in Japan. So that was a contract that, it's almost lifetime if you don't get in trouble. You just make music for these shows, these kids shows that go on forever. And kids shows music, honestly, not that difficult. So it was probably pretty easy money for him. Most of the kid shows in Japan, it would just be like little do 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 do. It would just literally be that stuff all the time. I actually don't have the talent to do that, but like I could come up with songs for kids songs. Last week in my office, we were talking about our company partners with other companies to do English. And one of them, we partnered with a bank. So we're going to do like a special event lesson, but it's for kids 0 to 3 years old. So little kids. So you're just going to sing songs. I was like, they haven't actually told us what we're singing songs about yet. Are we singing songs about banking? And then I started coming up with bank songs. I was really proud of myself. I came up with like 6 or 7, but 3 good ones. Cryptocurrency, it's not stable. I was doing that. Long-term investments, mutual funds, long-term IRC. Just are you interested or are you compound interested? It was good stuff. I should have written it down. I feel like I should have written down or just recorded into my phone as I was doing the songs, and then actually done it as a Veloci podcast and like finished the songs because they were dumb, but they were funny. And they were talking about banking, about like how you should take, long-term investments more seriously and start early. That's a good message to kids. I took my son to the bank last time we were in Canada and we opened some mutual funds and he was so bored. And I was like, dude, you're going to get so much money from this because it's not money he can touch anyways. Yeah. So that guy lost his contracts with kids shows and he's losing all his contracts. One of the things that happens in Japan, we've talked about this before. If you get in trouble, everyone drops you. Just everyone drops you. So I actually think this guy's going to have trouble making music for a long time. There's a difference between how men and women are treated though. Like a man, he can go away for a year and then come back. Whereas a woman goes away and she can never come back. She's just like, and again, it's that double standard that's really, really common in Japanese. Since we're talking about, now I'm finding all the notes of things I referenced before. I should start trying to memorize this, I guess. I don't know. It's too much to memorize because I'll have to get the details. So I have to find the note anyways. Mori, who got kicked out of the Olympics as like the like lead organizer for the Olympics for sexist comments, he's saying like women talk too much in meetings and stuff. They are saying there was an implication that he might come back as a honorary supreme advisor. I mean, there's a title. I think you put supreme in anything, it starts to sound like it's North Korean. The only time you can use supreme is when you're talking about fast food by adding bacon into something. What they did was they actually talked around this. So like someone had heard that Mori might come back in an advisory position. And then the people who they were talking to, so the media was talking to some people during a press conference, and they were like, we can't comment on individual appointments, which is very different from no, he isn't. And I think that's what they're saying, is that actually, I'm wondering, like, how good is this Mori guy? I have only ever seen him in the news saying dumb shit. I have trouble believing he's so good at his job that it like supersedes that. And then his little speech, when he said he was talking about stepping down and everyone was crying, I have so much trouble believing that. Now we're going back to the bubble. I'm sorry this is such a mess. It's summer vacation for the kids. So my free time is no longer my free time. I actually carved out this time. Talking about the Olympic bubble, when I wrote this down, which was yesterday or the day before, 17 cases. Now, the 17 cases is only one athlete. That was on that day. It's basically 14 contractors, 2 officials, and an athlete. There have been 123 cases total in the Olympic Village. So going back to homeboy in charge of the IOC saying they're, perfect security and there will be no problems and the bubble will remain intact. The day he said that, there was a couple of cases. It's clearly just going to happen every day. Tokyo had the most cases on a Sunday on record since the pandemic started last Sunday. I mean, again, none of this is a surprise. This was interesting to me that Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, they are basically anti-mask countries, which I didn't think would be a thing. I know like people opinions and groups and stuff, but I think countries basically all kind of follow WHO guidelines and stuff, WHO. But the athletes for these two countries, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, they didn't wear masks when they went into the opening ceremony, which was actually against the IOC rules. The IOC had rules that you had to wear a mask when you went into the stadium for the opening ceremony. You can take your mask off if you're on the podium. You can take it, so everyone has to stand away from you. You can take your mask off for 30 seconds so that they can take pictures of your emotional reaction to winning a medal. That is interesting. I didn't think about whole countries being anti-mask. I mean, I know Brazil, they were even in the like crux, like they had massive amounts of cases. Like the president was still saying, oh yeah, coronavirus isn't a big deal. Just tough it out. So, terrible attitude for a leader to take. Oh, since I mentioned medals, something I actually learned, that the medals themselves, in at least in this Olympics in Japan, they're actually made of, so the gold and the silver and the bronze all come from recycled laptops and smartphones, which I thought was really cool. So like I know there's a lot of gold connectors in smartphones, and you recycle that out, it's still gold. So they actually melted it all down and they made medals. That's just that's trivia. So if you ever go to a pub night and they go, "What were the Olympic medals made of?" You can't. Obviously the answer is not just gold. It's gold from recycled laptops and smartphones. So there are some, of course, natural problems. I remember coming to Japan. I came in September and it's hot. It's actually, you've missed maybe the hottest part. When I came to Japan, it was 2001. And I didn't think I could live here. The heat was so oppressive. I'd come from Canada, Vancouver, a very, very temperate city. I think the hottest days are like 28, whereas that's a cool day in summer in Japan. And I did my first summer judo session, and I think I dropped 10 pounds of weight. Just, it's all water, but I dropped all that weight in a 2-hour session because it's so hot and so humid, and it's a nightmare until you get used to it. I'm still not 100% used to it, but I've actually forced myself to try to exercise in hot temperatures just to try to get used to it. And after 20 years, I'm better. Certainly not 100% comfortable, but I run out of steam really quick. The tennis players have been complaining about the heat and humidity, as they should be. I actually think, because they're playing during the day, and I actually think that is a massive mistake. I don't think that is acceptable. They should at least be playing in the early morning or the late evening when it's at least cooler, if they're going to do these like open venues. I guess that probably doesn't work out for the time of the Olympics, but that should have been part of the planning in the first place. If I was planning it, no one would be doing stuff outside in the middle of the day in Japan. It would just everyone break for lunch for like 4 hours at least. And I know that probably doesn't work, but let's face it, you should be doing indoor sports anyways. You're not smart if you're doing outdoor sports. Tennis sucks. I personally don't like tennis. I wear glasses, so tennis is really hard for me. Judo's a really good sport for me because your opponent is the guy standing right in front of you. So that's something I can manage. If you went like 10 feet away, I would be not 100% sure who I should be fighting. There's also nature getting its way. Some sports, I think Olympic rowing has had to be rescheduled because of an approaching hurricane. And then I was like, no, don't reschedule it. Only the bravest deserve a gold medal. So you keep it in a hurricane. Rowing, again, I'm not into any of the sports, really. So I'm pretty negative about all the sports. I was like, you want to make rowing exciting? Have it during the hurricane. So like rowing is tough, but rowing during a hurricane, man, that is going to be a sport. The one who wins that, they deserve the gold. There's price gouging. It's manufactured, not natural. God damn it. Price gouging in the Olympics. I don't see that as a surprise. It was all the media guys. Now, if I go to a drink machine outside of my house, it's 160 yen for a cola. If you go to the nice machine near in my building, in my office, it's 140 yen, 20 yen less. If you go to Genki, which is actually a pharmacy, you can buy it for 78 yen. So that's like half price. At the Olympics, they're selling a Coke for 280 yen. That is a lot of money. And the press are also complaining about shitty food. But I guess I'm wondering if they're stuck in the bubble. No one is. Like the whole point of the big problem with the bubble of the Olympic Village is that everyone keeps going out anyways. There was a thing I saw this morning. It wasn't actually worth talking about too much, but there's a Canadian reporter and he's done tweets all about how awesome 7-Eleven is in Japan compared to back home. It sucks compared to Japan, which is actually true. And so it's like his meals and stuff, and he's gone crazy. And all these Japanese people are like, oh man, 7-Eleven is awesome. So if you come to Japan, once the pandemic is over, please wait until the pandemic is finished. I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to bring your disease here if you are sick. You visit the convenience stores. It is fascinating, and they are good. So do that. I think that's well worth doing. Oh, the U.S. Archers. So I flipped the page and I got to the U.S. Archers that I had in my head. These were a pair of anti-vax archers. They said they had already got the coronavirus. They'd survived it, so they're essentially immune now. They're not necessarily immune from variants, which was my concern, because it's all people coming together and creating a super virus is actually what the biggest concern I and actual doctors had with the Olympics. Oh, it's him and his wife. They both had the virus. They actually said if they made it mandatory to be vaccinated, I would not have come to the Olympics, which is a pretty strong stance to take. I disagree with it, but again, I'm very pro-vaccine. I'm pro-science. That's the thing. Then I thought, archers would be really good at administering vaccines because they could do it from really far away. Because if you had the archers on board, if someone was like, I don't want to get vaccinated, you could do, and they could actually hit them. I don't want to talk about the Olympics. And then the next story is about the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. I was like, Jesus Christ. We haven't even finished this one. We're talking about the Winter Olympics, and the Winter Olympics are next year. Oh, come on. That kind of stuff. It's just the guy from the IOC again. It's actually only the Winter Olympics 200 days away. Like, God damn. The Olympics are never ending. Beijing will need spectators, is what he said. We need and we want spectators. Now, here's the thing. 200 days. The virus isn't gone yet. Now, the Olympics so far, if you're going to be really critical, has been successful in that they've been able to do all the stuff they want to do. But still doesn't mean it was a good idea. It also doesn't mean that the virus is going to be gone in 200 days. Now, maybe they could take what they've learned here and apply it to the Beijing Olympics. I don't think they've done such a good job here Like, again, the gymnasts had to move to their own hotel to protect themselves. I don't think they've done such a good job that it would actually like justify having the Olympics, unless in 200 days it could actually be gone, or it could be a lot less. Everyone could be vaccinated. 83% of the American athletes are vaccinated. And it was, most of the people in the Olympic Village are vaccinated, but it's not all. So I actually think by that time you would either know everyone is vaccinated. And I would actually think, again, I'm getting into supreme leader territory. I'm thinking if you're not vaccinated, you're not allowed to come to the Olympics. Like, you're just bringing more, just thinking about the ironies of a second, like, universal wave. Like, not just like a wave, like, because Japan's had 4 or 5 waves of the coronavirus. But we know it came from China. And then people bring a variant back to China, and then it starts again because of the Beijing Olympics would be a nightmare. It would be ironic, but it would be an absolute nightmare. It went away, mutated, and came back, and then started again in the Olympics. Awful. We have another week of the Olympics. My promise to you, the person who is listening to Ninja News Japan or watching on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, I'm going to do my best this week to minimize the Olympic news. I almost guarantee I'm going to fail because that's just what media outlets are talking about. But I'll try to make something next week that is minimal. And then I guarantee I'm not going to succeed, but I'm going to try to minimize how much Olympic news there is next week. Yeah. I was done before it started. Where's my mouse? Okay. I'm extra done now.
Leave a text or voice question or comment at voicelink.fm/velocipodcast. Click the link in the show description. You can tweet questions or comments at Ninja News Japan or join the Facebook group. On Facebook, search for Ninja News Japan. Sexy out.
Sexy out.